Anna and Dmitri were an exemplary couple. At least, that's how it seemed from the outside. 10 years of marriage, 2 children, 7-year-old Sonia and 3-year-old Misha, a cozy suburban home, and seemingly complete idyll. Anna, a talented landscape designer, had dedicated almost all of her recent years to her family, caring for the children and creating a warm home. Dmitri, a successful sales manager, spent a lot of time at work, often returning late, citing important meetings and urgent projects. At first, Anna understood and supported him. She knew how important his career was to him and was proud of his ambition. But gradually, these late returns became the norm, not the exception. Dmitri's fatigue, his detachment, and his short, sometimes irritated responses to her questions began subtly but surely to erode their relationship. Anna felt like she was losing her husband. His jokes became more cynical, his gaze colder. He less and less often initiated intimacy, and when he did, she felt a mechanical detachment rather than the passion they once shared. She tried to talk, asked questions, but Dmitri brushed her off, blaming everything on fatigue and stress. "You're overthinking it, Anya. I'm just going through a tough period at work," he'd say, avoiding her gaze. At some point, Anna began to notice other oddities. A new, expensive watch on his wrist that he hadn't mentioned. Random SMS messages that he quickly deleted if she was nearby. The changed scent of his cologne, sharper and unfamiliar. Her intuition screamed danger, but her mind desperately clung to the familiar picture of their happy family. She pushed away the terrible thoughts, afraid to destroy what she felt could still be saved. But one evening, when Dmitri fell asleep in his armchair, dropping his phone, Anna couldn't hold back. The anxiety was too strong. With trembling hands, she unlocked the phone. Several messages in one of the messengers caught her attention. An unfamiliar name, Svetlana. The content of the messages was short, but left no doubt. "Missing our evening. You were wonderful. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow." A cold wave of horror and disgust washed over Anna. Her world, so familiar and reliable, collapsed in an instant. A photo attached to one of the messages finally broke her heart. Dmitri, smiling, embracing an attractive young woman Anna had never seen before. This wasn't just a fleeting fling. It was something more. Anna didn't wake Dmitri. She quietly got up and went to the kitchen, where she sat silently until morning, trying to process what had happened. She was cold, despite the warm night. Tears flowed silently, leaving salty trails on her cheeks. Every memory of their shared years, of their vows, of their children, now seemed like mockery. The pain of betrayal was physical. It squeezed her chest, making it impossible to breathe. By morning, Anna had made a decision. She needed to talk to Dmitri, and she needed answers. But most importantly, she needed to understand how to live on. Morning came but brought no relief. Dmitri, waking up as if nothing had happened, got ready for work. Anna, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of cold tea, watched him, trying to gather her thoughts. Just as he was about to leave, she spoke, barely audible. "We need to talk." Dmitri turned around, his face showing slight irritation. "Anya, I'm late. Later. Okay?" Anna looked up at him, her eyes full of tears and despair. "No, now, this can't wait." Something in her voice, in her pale face, made him stop. He returned and sat opposite her, trying to appear calm, but his gaze darted around, avoiding her eyes. Anna placed her phone on the table, its screen open to that very message from Svetlana. "What is this, Dima?" she asked, her voice trembling. Dmitri's face instantly changed. He paled, then flushed, and for a second, his gaze was hunted like a trapped animal. "Anya, this is nothing," he mumbled, trying to take the phone away. But Anna wouldn't let him. "Don't lie to me. I saw everything. I know everything." A silence fell, which seemed deafening. He avoided her gaze, his fingers nervously tracing the edge of the table. Finally, he took a deep breath, as if gathering strength, and began to speak. His confessions were chaotic, full of excuses and attempts to minimize what had happened. He spoke of work stress, of feeling lonely, of how it means nothing, just a momentary weakness. According to him, Svetlana was just a colleague with whom they had relaxed a few times after intense negotiations. He swore it wasn't love, that it was a mistake, and that he deeply regretted it. But every phrase, every excuse, only hurt Anna more. She heard not words of remorse, but an attempt to shift blame, to devalue her pain. I swear, Anya, this will never happen again. I love you. I love the children. We are a family. His words sounded empty, devoid of their former sincerity. Anna listened to him, and before her eyes flashed all the moments when she had believed him, when she had justified his absence, when she had waited for him. She saw his lies, his secrecy, his betrayal, and the longer he spoke, the clearer it became to her that this was not just a mistake. It was a systematic disregard for her, their marriage, their vows. She felt deceived, humiliated, and betrayed. How could you? Was all she could manage, and her voice sounded alien. How could you do this to us? To the children? Dmitri tried to embrace her, but she pushed him away. His touch felt repulsive to her. He begged, promised to change, asked for another chance. But Anna couldn't forget the pain that pierced her when she saw that photo, when she read those messages. She couldn't forget how he had lied to her for months, looking her in the eyes. One thing was clear to her. The trust that was the foundation of their marriage was shattered, and she didn't know if she could ever restore it. Their conversation lasted several hours, moving from mutual accusations to pleas, from tears to cold questions. In the end, Dmitri, defeated and drained, admitted he no longer knew what to say. Anna also felt that all words were exhausted. After the tumultuous night and morning conversation, a suffocating silence settled in the house. Dmitri left for work, leaving Anna alone with her shattered world. The children, fortunately, were at kindergarten, and Anna could allow herself to break down. She cried long and inconsolably, releasing all the pent-up emotions, pain, anger, despair. But gradually, through the tears, something else began to emerge: determination. She couldn't afford to break for the sake of her children. She had to be strong. First, Anna called her best friend Masha. Masha, hearing Anna's voice, immediately knew something was wrong. Anna, barely holding back sobs, told her everything. Masha listened silently, without judgment, and then said, "Come to my place, right now. I'm waiting for you." And Anna gathered the children, explaining to them that they were going to visit Aunt Masha. She didn't want them to see her tears. She didn't want them to feel the tension between their parents. The few days spent at Masha's became a breath of fresh air for Anna. Masha didn't pressure her, didn't offer advice unless asked. She was simply there, listening, hugging. She helped with the children, allowing Anna to be alone and think. It was during these days that Anna began to realize there was no going back to the past. Dmitri, of course, called, begged her to return, swore he would change everything. But his words now seemed empty. She no longer believed him. Trust was so utterly destroyed that restoring it seemed impossible. Anna understood that to forgive and forget would mean betraying herself, betraying her values, living in constant fear and suspicion. The hardest part was explaining to the children. Anna decided to be honest but delicate. When she returned home to pack some things, she sat Sonia and Misha down next to her. "Children," she began, trying to keep her voice steady, "Daddy and Mommy will live separately for a while. Sometimes that happens when adults need time to think." Sonia, old enough to sense the changes, asked, "Daddy won't live with us anymore?" Anna hugged her tighter. "Daddy will come to visit. We will see him. But for now, it will be like this." Misha, thankfully, was too young to understand the full depth of what was happening. But Sonia cried, and it broke Anna's heart. The financial side of the issue was also a serious problem. Dmitri's income was the primary one in the family, and Anna, though she had her own profession, hadn't worked full-time in a long time. But she was determined to be independent. She started browse job vacancies, calling old clients, figuring out how to organize her life to combine work and childcare. It was scary, but at the same time, it gave her a sense of control over the situation. She realized that Dimitri's infidelity, though a terrible betrayal, had also become a kind of catalyst. It forced her to reevaluate her life, to remember her own ambitions and strengths. Time passed. Anna rented a small apartment for herself and the children, filed for divorce, and actively started looking for work. It wasn't easy. In addition to financial instability, she had to cope with the emotional aftermath of the divorce. Sometimes despair overwhelmed her, especially in the evenings when the children were asleep. She missed her old life, the familiar routine. The person Dimitri was before his secret life ruined everything. She saw how hard the children were taking the separation. Sonia became more withdrawn, Misha often threw tantrums. Anna understood that they needed her support and stability more than ever. Dimitri initially tried hard to reconcile, but facing Anna's resolve, he gradually retreated. He continued to see the children, and Anna, despite all the pain, tried not to hinder it. She understood that the children needed their father. However, their interactions with Dimitri were strained, filled with unspoken resentments and awkward silences. Anna learned that his relationship with Svetlana also didn't last long. Apparently, Svetlana wasn't ready for the role of wife and mother that Dimitri, perhaps unconsciously, sought in her, trying to fill the void created after Anna left. This didn't bring Anna much satisfaction. The pain of betrayal hadn't disappeared, and the realization that Dimitri had possibly lost everything over a fleeting fling only intensified the feeling of bitterness. Anna threw herself into work. She started taking on small projects, rebuilding connections. Every successful deal, every satisfied client gave her a sense of her own worth and independence. She felt like a professional again, not just a wife and mother. She learned to live without Dimitri, to make decisions independently, to rely only on herself. It was difficult, but at the same time incredibly liberating. She started spending more time with Masha and other friends who supported her and helped her through this difficult period. She also began seeing a psychologist. Conversations with the specialist helped her sort through her feelings, process her resentment, and accept what had happened. The psychologist helped her understand that Dimitri's infidelity was not her fault, that she shouldn't blame herself for his choices. It was his choice, and he had to bear responsibility for it. Anna realized that forgiveness was not about Dimitri, but about herself. It was a process of freeing herself from pain and resentment to move forward. She wasn't yet ready to forgive him completely, but she was moving in that direction, realizing that it was necessary for her own healing. A year had passed since Anna learned the truth. It was a year full of pain, struggle, but also growth. She learned to live anew, to find joy in small things, and to value her independence. Her career took off. She felt sought after and successful again. The children gradually adapted to their new reality, and although they still missed a complete family, they saw how their mom was becoming stronger and happier. Anna dedicated a lot of attention to them, compensating for their father's absence in their daily lives. Of course, scars remained, but they were no longer open wounds. Sometimes, when she saw happy couples or heard conversations about strong marriages, a slight sadness would still wash over her. But this sadness wasn't as sharp as before. She understood that her experience, though painful, had made her stronger, wiser, and taught her to value herself. She stopped fearing loneliness, realizing that being alone didn't mean being unhappy. On the contrary, she had found a freedom she had lacked in her previous marriage. One day, at the playground where she had brought Misha, a man approached her. He was the father of one of Sonia's classmates, whom Anna had occasionally seen at parent-teacher meetings. He started a conversation about school and the children. Anna noticed that he looked at her with genuine interest. She wasn't flirting or looking for new relationships. Her heart was still healing, but she felt open to new impressions, to new possibilities. He suggested they get coffee, and Anna, to her own surprise, agreed. It was just a cup of coffee, but in that moment, Anna understood that life goes on. That, despite all the trials, she hadn't broken. She survived and became stronger. She learned to forgive, if not Dimitri, then herself for having made a wrong choice once. She realized that infidelity in marriage isn't a life sentence, but merely one stage that can mark the beginning of a new, happier chapter. She didn't know what the future held, but she looked into it with hope, with a sense of self-worth, and with faith in her own strength. Her story wasn't a story of an end, but a story of rebirth. She knew she deserved happiness and was ready to move towards it, step by step, with her head held high. The coffee with Mark, Sonia's classmate's father, turned into a pleasant hour of conversation. Anna found herself laughing more easily than she had in years. Mark was a kind, attentive man with a quiet sense of humor. He was a single father too, having lost his wife several years prior to an illness. There was a shared understanding in their exchange, a silent acknowledgement of the challenges and resilience required to navigate life as a single parent. They talked about their children's school, about their jobs, and about the small victories and struggles of everyday life. Anna felt no pressure, no expectation, just genuine human connection. It was a refreshing change from the emotional turmoil that had dominated her life for so long. When he suggested another coffee sometime, she felt a genuine warmth spread through her. Over the next few months, these coffee meetings became more frequent. They started meeting without the children, finding common ground in their shared interests beyond parenting. Mark was an architect, and they discovered a mutual appreciation for art, design, and nature. He listened attentively when Anna spoke about her work, offering thoughtful insights. He never pried about her past, simply offering quiet support and a steady presence. Anna, in turn, found herself opening up to him in ways she hadn't anticipated. She spoke about her journey, her struggles, and her renewed sense of purpose. Mark's calm demeanor and genuine empathy were a balm to her still healing heart. She wasn't looking for a replacement for Dmitri, nor was she ready for a new romantic relationship. But Mark's friendship was a gentle reminder that life still held beauty, connection, and the possibility of new beginnings. It was a subtle shift, a quiet hum of hope beneath the surface of her daily routine. One evening, after a particularly challenging day at work, Anna found herself confiding in Mark about her lingering fears and anxieties regarding co-parenting with Dmitri. She admitted her struggle with fully detaching emotionally from the past, even as she moved forward. Mark listened patiently, then shared some of his own experiences with grief and letting go. "It's not about forgetting," he said softly. "It's about learning to carry the past without letting it weigh you down. It's about making space for new joy." His words resonated deeply with Anna. She realized that while she had made immense progress, there were still layers of hurt to unpack. His presence in her life was not a solution, but a gentle encouragement to continue her journey of self-discovery and healing. She felt a profound gratitude for this unexpected friendship, a testament to life's ability to surprise and offer solace in unforeseen ways. The concept of forgiveness had always been a complicated one for Anna. Forgiving Dmitri felt like condoning his actions, like absolving him of the pain he had caused. But through her therapy sessions and her honest conversations with Mark, she began to understand that forgiveness was primarily for herself. It was about releasing the burden of anger, resentment, and bitterness that she was carrying. It wasn't about forgetting what happened, but about choosing not to let it define her future or consume her emotional energy. She realized that holding on to the anger was like drinking poison herself and expecting Dmitri to suffer. One afternoon, Dmitri called, expressing a desire to discuss the children's summer plans more thoroughly. Anna agreed to meet him in a neutral place, a cafe near the children's school. It was the first time they had met alone since their initial confrontation, outside of quick handovers of the children. The conversation was initially stiff, punctuated by awkward silences. Dmitri looked tired, perhaps a little humbled. He spoke about his own struggles, about the emptiness he felt, and about his regret. He didn't ask for her back, but he did apologize, more genuinely than before, acknowledging the depth of his mistake and the pain he had inflicted. Listening to him, Anna felt a flicker of something new. Not love, not desire, but a quiet sense of closure. She saw him not as the betrayer, but as a flawed human being who had made a terrible error. She wasn't ready to be friends, but she could, for the first time, look at him without the consuming rage. "I've been working on forgiving you, Dmitri," she said, her voice steady. "Not for you, but for me. I need to move on. And holding on to this anger isn't helping anyone." A heavy silence followed. Dmitri simply nodded, a look of profound relief, mixed with lingering sorrow, on his face. This wasn't a reconciliation, but it was a crucial step towards peaceful coexistence and, for Anna, a profound act of self-liberation. It was the moment she truly began to let go of the past. With the emotional weight of the past slowly lifting, Anna found herself embracing life with renewed vigor. Her landscape design business was thriving. She hired an assistant, allowing her more time for creative projects and, crucially, for her children. Sonia and Misha were flourishing, adapting well to their new routine and thriving on their mother's renewed energy and joy. Anna ensured they felt secure and loved, creating a stable and nurturing environment that prioritized their well-being above all else. Her friendship with Mark continued to deepen. They shared stories, dreams, and vulnerabilities. There was a natural ease between them, a quiet understanding that blossomed into something more profound than friendship. One warm spring evening, after a shared dinner and laughter that filled Anna's apartment, Mark gently took her hand. "Anna," he began, his eyes soft but earnest, "I admire you. I admire your strength, your resilience, and your beautiful heart. I know you've been through a lot, and I'm not here to rush anything. But I want you to know that I care for you deeply, and I'd like to explore what this could be, if you're open to it." Anna's heart fluttered. It was a feeling she hadn't experienced in years, a blend of excitement, trepidation, and genuine happiness. She looked at him, truly looked at him, and saw kindness, respect, and a quiet strength that resonated with her own. She thought of her journey, the pain, the healing, and the growth. She realized that she was ready for a new chapter, ready to open her heart again, not out of necessity or desperation, but from a place of wholeness and self-love. "I'd like that very much, Mark," she replied, her voice soft but firm, a genuine smile gracing her lips. This wasn't a fairy tale ending, but a new beginning, built on trust, respect, and the hard-won wisdom of a woman who had faced betrayal and emerged stronger, ready to embrace the promise of a future filled with hope. Her story, once marked by pain, now began to write its most beautiful pages.